Howdy, and welcome to the aggieTEACH Momentum Podcast, brought to you by the aggieTEACH-Arts and Sciences program at Texas A&M University. I am Dr. Jennifer Whitfield, your host for today's episode. I currently serve as the Assistant Provost for the Math Learning Center and am an instructional professor in the Department of Mathematics here at Texas A&M University. But as the former aggieTEACH Director and high school teacher myself, I am thrilled to host today's session. Teaching is very near and dear to my heart, and I strongly believe that excellent teachers are the key to student success. This podcast is meant to provide a little more insight and information to those seeking a secondary content teaching certification in Texas. We aim to provide episodes that help pre-service educators on the path to certification, as well as leverage the experience of myself and other guest speakers to support teachers in their first few years in the classroom. The title of today's episode is Why Teach? And we have a guest in the studio with us today. Please welcome Kenric Davies, a former high school physics teacher and now the program manager for aggieTEACH-Arts and Sciences. Kenric, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, of course. I know this studio well, so it's fun to be on this side now.
Well, excellent. I look forward to our conversation today. The first question we generally ask all of our guests is, who are you and how you got into education? We know teaching was not your primary plan when you were here as an undergrad, but somewhere along the way in your undergrad journey, you found your way to teaching.
I did.
So maybe today, Kenric, we should start with why you wanted to be on the other side of the discussion for this episode.
That's a great question. I've been doing this podcast for about a year now, and I have shared a little bit of my story in each one of the podcasts, little tidbits here, stories there, but never had a chance to really share my intentions of getting into education, tell my story from the beginning, and really explain what I enjoyed about the career, what I loved about it every single day. And then eventually I did get out of the classroom. And I think sometimes when we are talking about, okay, I'm recruiting people to come into the classroom and I myself am no longer in the classroom, how does that mesh up, right? So this will be kind of an avenue where I can explain, the reasons why I got out of the classroom and why it's still a valid and important career. So.
Super. And we can emphasize that you really still are in education, right? Just on the different side. And I think we'll get through that through this episode. So tell us first, why did you stay in the classroom?
So the classroom was a really interesting environment. I knew coming, I guess, midway through college, maybe not coming into college, but I knew midway through college that I did not want a career in which I did the same thing every day. I did not want to sit at a desk and not, talk to people and just do spreadsheets or, something. That's not what I wanted to do, which is, I think, one of the reasons why I got into science, for one, because it's always about discovering new things and doing stuff. I think that's where the allure of teaching kind of came in. So every day was a new day. I got to do something different.
Certainly is. Yes, every day is a new day. What was it that convinced you to keep going year after year? So I'm sure somewhere in there at the beginning, you were going off of adrenaline, excitement, but you did this for quite a while. And so what kept you going year after year into that physics classroom?
Yeah. I was in the classroom for 13 years, which seems like a long time, but I guess really it's not comparatively to some other teachers out there. But what kept me going every year was a little bit of I could do it better, right? I mean, I went through a year and I remember the lessons that I stumbled over and I remember the lessons that really went well. And I was thinking, I have some ideas for next year. And it was kind of exciting to have ideas. And then I got to marry that with my physics degree and the fact that I was teaching physics. And if you're in physics or in a related field, there's kind of two different types of physics, right? You got your theoretical physics, you got your experimental physics. I'm an experimentalist, so that really went well with a science teacher because that means I got to do labs, I got to design things. I literally built lab equipment for my students to do things in the classroom. So not only was I scratching the itch of not doing the same thing every day, but I was still doing the physics that I loved, and that kept me going. It was just a great job. job, and I loved every second of it.
Good, yeah. So one thing too, when I was teaching, I taught for 8 years at a high school level, and one thing that really kept me going, and I was thinking maybe this was also something for you, is when you're in there for a longer period of time, you really get to see the outcome of the student that you had, say, like in 8th grade. You
Sure.
get to see what's happening with them in college, and you get to see them come back, and they give you a lot of positive
Yep.
affirmation that really keeps you doing what you're doing. And it really, it's the connection with the student, and then seeing afterwards what
Yeah.
they've done is, to me, was really inspiring as a teacher, and I can totally see that as one for you as well.
Yeah, seeing them succeed. I would love to be able to say that I created, 50 physicists, but that was not the case. I didn't. I did not create that many physicists, but I did create a couple, and some of them came from some of the most unusual places. Someone I did not expect to graduate high school and go into physics was pursuing. The last time I checked on him, was pursuing a doctorate in physics from LSU.
Wow,
So,
that's fantastic.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I love that, seeing them succeed, seeing them come back. In fact, there's actually a few students walking around Texas A&M's campus right now that are some of my former students,
That's
and I see
fun.
them every once in a while. And so it's really cool to see. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. And even if they're not going to be a physicist, right? If they just loved coming to your class
Hmm.
and they learned to love the subject that they're not maybe love it, but they enjoyed coming to the class, that's just another great feeling. Lots of great feelings, I feel like,
Yeah.
as a classroom teacher. In your teaching career, I'd be interested to know, was there ever a time you questioned whether teaching was actually the right profession for you?
I did, and actually it was a couple times, and they were years apart from each other. But I think it's natural on the front end.
Hmm.
I think, especially in my job now, and I know you've been in that position of supporting new educators, that first year can be a little rough, right? And I made it probably to October. For whatever reason, October just seems to be the month that
Hmm.
everything tends to fall apart. And I started questioning. I was like, well, can I do this for the next 25 years? Can I do it for the next 30 years? Can I do it until retirement? Is this really what I want to do? And I kind of made the decision that yes, I mean, I'm in it for the long haul, or as long as I can haul it.
Hmm.
And I was going to um, just stay in it and see where it took me, because I did enjoy it. I enjoyed working with the students. I enjoyed doing the physics, and I knew I could get better at it.
Hmm.
First year teacher, you're obviously not the best out there, but I knew I could get better. The next time came right before I ended up switching schools. I think what prompted me to move to a different district was a change in administration.
Hmm.
So I know if you're listening out there and you're a teacher and you happen to follow on this podcast, you may have been in a similar situation, that when administration changes in a school, there's a lot of things that begin to change.
Sure.
Policies change. People who were doing one thing are now doing something completely different. And that's when I started thinking. I was like, okay, I have a decision in front of me. I can either continue what I'm doing at the same school, potentially be miserable, or wait it out and see if
Hmm.
anything gets better. I could move to a different school, which is what I ended up doing, or I could choose to do something else. And I
Hmm.
had that choice in front of me, and I chose to keep with it. And I just ended up going to a different district and had an even better time in that district. So, yeah, again, I say it almost every day when I talk to students, but I loved every second of the
Hmm.
job. So,
Hmm. Yeah, I think there's two important things I thought of as you were talking. And one is, so I have done some research on teacher and teacher retention. And one of the statements, or kind of one of our findings that I can summarize pretty quickly, is that teachers don't leave districts because of the students that they teach. It's generally the adults that they work with. So
right.
this kind of goes to where you have a change in administration. And really one of the best things about teaching, there's a lot of really good things, but one really positive aspect is that you can switch districts.
Hmm.
You can live in a rural town, right, in a community. You can go to a different state. There's oftentimes really transferable criteria for certification within the different
Right.
states. And so you're not really locked into a certain region.
Hmm.
And you can do what you love with the students that you love. And once you find the right fit, it really then, I think, is just the marriage of every type of happiness you
Yeah,
have for
that's
yourself.
really true. One of our first season episodes on the podcast had to do about how interviewing is actually a two-way conversation, right? Because you got
Yes.
to find that right fit. They're looking for
Yes.
the right fit. You're looking for the right fit. So once you get in a spot that just is a great combination of you and them, and personalities and resources and students and administration, That's like
Yes.
heaven.
Yes, it is. And you learn a lot, and you can ask the right questions on your next interview.
Yeah, and I'll say one more thing about the people that you work with, and that kind of goes back to one of the previous questions about like why I stayed, and that is sometimes administration change that can be difficult, but the people you work with, the friends that you make in the department. In fact, I actually identified more with the math department than what I did with the science department in my first job, and I'm still in a group chat with
Nice.
several of those teachers
Yeah.
that I worked with, 10, 15 years ago,
Yeah.
and if you can find that people, right, your people
For
on
sure.
that campus, I mean, that'll be another reason why it's just really fun to stay.
It's great to be around like-minded people, right?
Right.
And so when you find that fit, it is just phenomenal.
Yep.
So you eventually left the
hmm
classroom and came back to Texas A&M to lead the Aggie Teach program,
Yep.
the program that you went through, the program that loved you. I know people that were here when you were there. What kind of circumstances factored into this decision to come back to Texas A&M and lead the program, and why did you make that transition?
Yeah, it's a great question. As I've said, I loved every second of it, right? So the question is, well, why did you leave if you loved it? I would say for me, it was a shifting passion. So as I was teaching about 3 years in or so, I realized that I had a physics degree. I was teaching physics. There's not a whole lot of us out there, right? There's a lot of people teaching physics that didn't have the degree, and I could help, right? So I started to do professional development. I started to go out and do sessions at conferences, and so I started helping other teachers with the physics content knowledge, with how to teach physics better, the different activities that I had come up with in my classroom. My very first, you'll love this, my very first
Please share.
conference session was called Physics. There's an app for that.
Oh, yeah.
I know, right? I mean, it was terrible. It was a terrible title, but we were using
Probably
iPods.
hot at the time.
Yeah,
so,
it was.
yeah.
We were using iPods and games on touch screens that had just been invented, right, to teach physics. And I loved it, and the teachers loved it. I eventually got in with different associations, national associations, state associations, and was doing professional development across the country. I still am doing that to some degree. So shifting passions, where I obviously am trying to help my students learn physics in my classroom, but I'm also assisting teachers now.
Sure.
And then a position opened up nearby in one of the districts that I was working in, where it was at a community college. So I was teaching physics and astronomy at the community college now. It was shortly after I got my master's, so it was kind of a fit, and looking to expand my horizons a little bit. From there, a different position opened up that was with a different A&M system school. It was it's now called East Texas A&M. It was called A&M Commerce back then.
Okay.
And it was a position where I was going to be teaching science classes, so a physics class and a chemistry class, but for their K-8 teacher preparation programs.
Oh, interesting.
So for students trying to become elementary and middle school teachers, I'd be helping them essentially pass their science core content exams. So again, one chemistry, one physics, and I love that. It kind of married a little bit of I'm helping them learn the science, but I'm also giving them some tips and tricks about what not to say to make misconceptions happen,
Sure.
what sort of models have limitations, and bringing the education side to it. Even though I wasn't really asked to do that, it was kind of in that program.
You just
So
can't not
I
do
can't
some
not.
of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So again, my passion sort of shifted again, right? I'm helping students love physics. I'm helping teachers love physics, and now I'm helping teachers be better teachers. And at some point, right, this opportunity came up, and my wife said, "You jump on that because we want to go back to Aggieland."
Yeah, it's a great place to be
Yeah.
for sure.
And yeah, so the rest is history. I'm here now. So
Well, we are just thrilled to have you back here, and I know that you're just making a huge impact with these students. So now that you're on the other side of the table from the undergraduate content majors, trying to recruit them just as you were once recruited, what do you say to get them to consider a career in education?
there's several things that we use in our marketing, right? I mean, the employability aspect of it, the 100% employment rate that we have. Right? If you want to be a teacher, there's a job for you, right? You've already brought up how it can be transferred to states. You can go in pretty much anywhere in the world and be a teacher. But what I love most about that conversation is sharing my story, sharing how I got into it as a content major. Right? I was a physics major, not looking to be an educator. And I made the decision to say, oh, I need a backup plan because my major is hard, right? Physics is hard. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to hack it as a physicist, right? So a terrible way to get into education, but it was a backup plan, right? But as soon as I got into the classroom, that very first class where I'm in the field and I'm helping a student with whatever it was. I think my first observation was actually in an elementary school. But I'm working with a student. I'm helping them learn. I'm seeing the light bulb moments that so many teachers talk about. And that backup plan became my primary plan real quick. And I stuck with it. I loved it. That's what I wanted to do. I got to talk about physics all day long to a captive audience, and no one could stop me, right? So it was everything I wanted.
That's fantastic. Yeah, you find energy from it. And I still, I still teach math classes here at Texas A&M, and I love to go in and teach because when I leave that classroom that day, I am filled with more energy than I was when I came into it. And I think that that's really some evidence that it's a right fit because you're gaining energy from a job, a quote unquote job, but you really enjoy going and working with the students and doing that. So if the listeners want to learn more from you and the aggieTEACH program, where can they find you online?
So you can find me by Googling me. I love talking about this. I obviously have an unusual name, right? Kenric Davies. It's unusual spelling. If you Google me, I'm literally, the last time I checked, the first 8 pages on Google. Just different links of different things that I've done.
Not hard to find.
Not hard to find. Google me, you'll find me, and you'll find my story and all the things that I do. But obviously, if you want to learn more about aggieTEACH, we have our website, the aggieTEACH-Arts.tamu.edu. Where we have a lot of information about our specific program, teacher certification pathways here at A&M. The podcast is pointed there. We have a lot of resources that we are trying to support our current students with. We are trying to support our alumni and early career teachers with this podcast and several other things. And all of that is posted on our website. So
that's excellent. That's excellent. Well, I think everybody that's listening, and especially if they're thinking of maybe teaching is something they would like to investigate a little bit more. When I was aggieTEACH director, we had a number of students who started teaching. They didn't make teaching their whole profession. They did start and they taught for 5 or 6 years and then moved on to another profession. But the skills that they developed in those 5 or 6 years of teaching really transferred well into their other professions that they did. So it doesn't have to be something, right? It's expanding their opportunities for employment and then really having opportunities when they go to leave.
Yeah, the biggest thing I say when I talk to students is think about what you have to do as a teacher. You have to collect information and present it in such a way that it's going to be understandable for somebody else, right? To get them to learn something. And that is essentially what almost every job is, collecting information and presenting it in a way that you're giving that information to someone who's going to understand it. And that's teaching right there.
That's right. And let's not forget, there's no professions without teachers.
That's true, right? It's the how do I put it? The profession that creates all others.
Yes. So let's not forget that. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you, Kenric, for being our guest today. The aggieTEACH Momentum podcast drops every 2 weeks. So make sure that you are looking for the next episode on Spotify or linked on the aggieTEACH-Arts and Sciences website. For more information, you can visit our program website at aggieTEACH-Artsci.tamu.edu. That's aggieTEACH-ARTSCI.tamu.edu. Thanks, and gig 'em.